Many Christians think they have all the time in the world to get serious about their faith, believing that God's patience is endless and His warnings are just suggestions. But what I'm about to share with you will shatter that dangerous assumption forever. My name is Evelyn Michelle Thompson, and I died for 22 minutes during Hurricane Francine 2 weeks ago. Today, you will discover definitively why September 2025 is humanity's final wake-up call and what Jesus Christ Himself revealed to me about the catastrophic spiritual deadline that most believers are completely unaware of. Before we begin, please subscribe to this channel and leave a comment with Amen and your country, so I know this urgent message is reaching souls around the world. Hit that notification bell because what I'm sharing could save your eternal destiny. I need you to understand something critical about who I am, because what happened to me defies every logical explanation I've ever trusted. I'm 24 years old, a graduate student at Tulane University in New Orleans studying environmental science. My entire academic life has been built on empirical data, peer-reviewed research, and measurable phenomena. I've always approached faith the way I approach my thesis work, needing concrete evidence before accepting any conclusion. I believed in God, but in that distant intellectual way that many college-educated people do. He was more of a concept than a personal reality in my daily existence. I was focused on my research about coastal erosion, my teaching assistant responsibilities, and honestly, just surviving graduate school while trying to figure out my career path. I was the type of person who needed scientific proof for everything. If you couldn't show me the methodology and reproducible results, I remained skeptical. That Tuesday morning, August 29th, started with the same routine I'd followed for months. Hurricane Francine was approaching the Gulf Coast, and while everyone else was evacuating, I had volunteered to stay behind as part of an emergency research team documenting storm surge patterns. The National Weather Service had issued dire warnings about Francine's unprecedented intensity, but as a scientist, I felt prepared and protected by our safety protocols. I remember checking the barometric readings at 6:30 a.m. and noting how dramatically the pressure was dropping. The wind was already howling at 85 miles per hour, and we knew it would get much worse. I had grabbed my waterproof equipment bag and a thermos of coffee, heading to our monitoring station near Lake Pontchartrain. My research supervisor had emphasized how valuable this real-time data would be for future storm predictions. I was driving my Toyota Corolla through increasingly dangerous conditions, listening to emergency broadcasts while monitoring our field equipment remotely. The streets were nearly empty, except for a few other researchers and emergency personnel. I remember feeling oddly exhilarated by the scientific opportunity we had, despite the obvious dangers. I had just completed my preliminary data collection when the storm's intensity exploded beyond all forecasts. The last thing I remember before everything changed was a massive storm surge, taller than any building I'd ever seen, rushing toward our position with terrifying speed. The emergency protocols we'd rehearsed became meaningless in the face of nature's raw power. My vehicle was swept away like a toy, tumbling through floodwaters that seemed to have no bottom. Later, the rescue teams told me it took them 4 hours to locate my submerged car and extract my body. By then, I had been underwater without oxygen for an impossible length of time. The paramedics worked frantically to restart my heart, but I had already flatlined multiple times during the rescue and transport. What happened next challenges every scientific principle I've devoted my life to studying. Instead of unconsciousness, instead of the void I expected as a rational materialist, I found myself standing in the most extraordinary place that exists beyond human comprehension. The initial sensation was overwhelming luminosity, not harsh or blinding, but warm and living, as if light itself possessed consciousness. It didn't originate from any identifiable source, but seemed to permeate every atom of space surrounding me. The radiance appeared to breathe with gentle rhythm, expanding and contracting like the heartbeat of creation itself. The colors transcended anything within Earth's visible spectrum. As an environmental scientist, I understand electromagnetic radiation and wavelength physics, but these were hues that don't exist in our dimensional reality. They were so vivid, so pure, that our earthly palette seemed like dull shadows by comparison. The atmosphere itself seemed to vibrate with harmonious music. Not acoustic waves reaching my ears, but melodies that resonated directly within my essence. As I stood there attempting to comprehend what was occurring, I sensed a presence approaching with overwhelming love, like being enveloped by pure compassion incarnate. Then I saw him walking toward me, and I recognized him immediately. Though he bore no resemblance to traditional religious artwork or cinematic portrayals, Jesus appeared as a man in his 30s, yet there was something eternal about his presence, as if he contained all of time within his being. His eyes held depths I couldn't measure, infinite wisdom, boundless love, and a profound sadness that seemed to encompass all human pain throughout history. When he gazed at me, I felt completely understood, completely known, completely accepted. Every defense I had constructed, every intellectual barrier I'd erected, became transparent in his presence. His voice, when he spoke, didn't enter through my auditory system. It resonated directly within my heart, my very core. "Evelyn," he said, and hearing my name from his lips was like experiencing the most beautiful symphony ever composed. "You have been brought here for a specific purpose. There are revelations you must witness, truths you must share with the world before time expires." I wanted to voice countless questions, but somehow I understood this wasn't the moment for inquiries. This was the time to listen, to observe, to receive whatever he needed to reveal to me. The overwhelming love emanating from him was combined with an urgency that made my soul tremble. Something significant was happening, something crucial, and time was rapidly diminishing. "The world is entering its final season of divine grace," he continued, his expression becoming more solemn. "September 2025 represents the last portal, the final invitation, before everything transforms permanently. Humanity stands at a decisive crossroads, and most remain completely unaware. You must tell them what you're about to witness." The space around us began to shift and transform, like reality itself was being rewritten before my eyes. I felt his presence beside me, not physical contact, but something far more substantial than anything physical could ever be. "Stay close to me, Evelyn. What I'm about to show you will be difficult to witness, but it's absolutely necessary. The people need to understand what's truly at stake." As he spoke these words, I felt a pulling sensation, as if we were moving through dimensions I couldn't comprehend. The beautiful space where we had been standing dissolved, and suddenly we were somewhere else entirely, somewhere that made me understand why his message carried such desperate urgency, why this warning couldn't be delayed. What I witnessed next shattered everything I thought I knew about our world, about time, about the future awaiting all of humanity. Jesus began revealing visions of what's approaching, not mere prophecies or theoretical possibilities, but events already set in motion, already beginning to manifest. And the timeline he showed me begins now, in September 2025, with choices that every single person on earth will be forced to make. The first vision struck me like lightning, showing me something happening right now in our world that most people have absolutely no awareness of. He revealed the spiritual warfare raging invisibly around us every single moment, and how September 2025 marks a critical turning point in that battle. What I witnessed was so intense, so immediate, that I realized why he brought me back, why I couldn't remain in that place of perfect peace. People need to know what's happening. They need to understand that the choices they make this month, the decisions they make about their faith, about their lives, about their relationship with God, will determine not just their own eternal fate, but the destiny of everyone they love. The first vision Jesus revealed was unlike anything I could have prepared myself for. We were suspended above what appeared to be a vast metropolis, but I could see through buildings, through walls, through the very fabric of reality itself. I could perceive people's hearts, their souls, their deepest spiritual conditions. What I witnessed there broke my heart completely. I observed millions of people proceeding through their daily routines, completely oblivious that spiritual forces were waging war for their eternal souls right around them. These weren't symbolic battles. They were actual, visible conflicts occurring in dimensions just beyond human perception. Dark entities moved through crowds, whispering lies and deceptions, while beings of light desperately tried to penetrate the spiritual blindness that had settled over so many hearts like a heavy shroud. "Look carefully, Evelyn," Jesus said, his voice filled with profound grief. "See how they have been deceived into believing that this temporary world is all that exists. They pursue things that will crumble to dust while ignoring the eternal treasures I have prepared for them." I watched as people rushed through their lives, focused entirely on their careers, their social media personas, their material accumulations. The dark entities seemed to feed off this distraction, growing stronger each time someone chose temporary pleasure over eternal truth. But what struck me most was how easily people could break free from this deception if only they would turn their hearts toward God, even for a single moment. Then Jesus showed me something that made my scientific mind struggle to process. He revealed that time itself operates differently than we understand. September 2025 isn't just another month on the calendar. It's a convergence point, a moment when spiritual laws and physical laws intersect in ways that create unprecedented opportunities. Every generation has its appointed time, he explained. But this generation, your generation, has been given a unique window. The spiritual atmosphere of September 2025 has been prepared for a great awakening, but it requires human cooperation. It requires people to choose faith over fear, love over selfishness, eternity over temporary comfort. I saw waves of spiritual energy building across the earth like a massive storm system preparing to break. But this wasn't a destructive storm. It was a storm of grace, of mercy, of divine intervention. However, just like any storm, people needed to prepare for it. Those who were spiritually ready would experience it as the greatest blessing of their lives. Those who weren't prepared would find themselves overwhelmed and confused. The second vision Jesus showed me was even more startling. I found myself observing what appeared to be a timeline stretching from September 2025 into the future. But this timeline wasn't fixed. It was fluid, changing based on the choices people were making right now in real time. Free will, Jesus said, noticing my confusion. I have given humanity the power to choose their destiny, both individually and collectively. What happens after September 2025 depends entirely on how people respond to the opportunities I'm giving them this month. I saw two distinct paths branching out from September 2025. The first path was radiant, filled with light and hope. On this path, I witnessed a great spiritual revival spreading across the earth. People were returning to God in unprecedented numbers. Families were being restored. Communities were being healed. Nations were finding peace. It was beautiful beyond description, a world transformed by divine love. But the second path was dark and deeply troubling. On this path, humanity continued to reject God's calling, choosing instead to pursue their own desires without regard for spiritual truth. The result was chaos, division, and ultimately a spiritual darkness that seemed to consume everything in its wake. The choice is theirs, Jesus said, his eyes reflecting both infinite love and deep concern. I am calling to every heart, knocking on every door, extending my hand to every soul, but I will not force anyone to choose me. That decision must come from their own free will. What shook me most was realizing that these weren't distant future events. They were starting now, today, based on decisions people are making as I speak to you. Every person who chooses to open their heart to God during September 2025 is helping to steer humanity toward that path of light. Every person who continues to ignore his calling is contributing to the darker timeline. Then Jesus showed me something personal, something that made me understand why I had to return and share this message. He revealed that my accident wasn't really an accident at all. It was a divine appointment, a carefully orchestrated moment designed to bring me into His presence at exactly the right time. Your analytical mind, your need for proof and evidence, these aren't obstacles to faith, Evelyn. They're gifts I gave you for this specific purpose, he explained. The world needs someone who can translate spiritual truth into language that skeptical minds can understand. They need someone who can bridge the gap between faith and reason. I realized that every aspect of my life, my environmental science studies, my logical approach to problems, even my previous skepticism about spiritual matters had been preparation for this moment. God hadn't made a mistake by calling someone like me. He had specifically chosen someone like me because the message needed to reach people who think like I used to think. The third vision Jesus showed me was perhaps the most urgent. I saw a great spiritual harvest beginning in September 2025, but the window for this harvest was limited. It was like watching farmers who had only a brief period to gather their crops before the season changed permanently. Many of my children have been praying for revival, for awakening, for a move of my spirit, Jesus said. Those prayers are about to be answered, but the harvest requires workers. It requires people who are willing to step out of their comfort zones and share my love with others. I watched as opportunities for spiritual conversations, for acts of kindness, for moments of witness began multiplying exponentially. But I also saw how easy it was for people to miss these opportunities if they weren't paying attention, if they were too caught up in their own concerns to notice the divine appointments being arranged around them. The vision showed me that every single person has a role to play in what's coming. Some are called to be bold evangelists, sharing the gospel with large crowds. Others are called to quiet acts of service, showing God's love through their actions. Still others are called to be intercessors, praying fervently for the spiritual breakthrough that's coming. But everyone, absolutely everyone, has something important to contribute to what God is doing in September 2025. No one is too young, too old, too inexperienced, or too damaged to be used by God in this critical time. He's looking for willing hearts, not perfect people. As these visions continued to unfold before me, I began to understand the weight of what I was witnessing. This wasn't just about individual salvation, though that was certainly part of it. This was about the entire trajectory of human history being determined by the choices people make this month. Jesus turned to me with an expression of such love and trust that it overwhelmed me. Evelyn, I'm entrusting you with this message because time is short and the stakes are higher than most people realize. September 2025 is humanity's final invitation to choose revival over judgment, awakening over slumber, life over death. After this month, the spiritual climate will shift permanently, and the opportunities that exist now will not come again in your lifetime. I felt the full weight of this responsibility settling on my shoulders like a heavy cloak. Here I was, a graduate student who just weeks ago was worried about thesis deadlines and research grants, being asked to carry a message that could affect the eternal destiny of millions of people. The magnitude of it was almost paralyzing, but then Jesus placed his hand over my heart and I felt a warmth spread through my entire being. It wasn't just comfort, it was strength, courage, and an unshakable certainty that what I was experiencing was absolutely real. Every doubt I had ever harbored about God's existence, every question about the meaning of life, every fear about death, all of it melted away in the presence of perfect truth. "Do not be afraid, Evelyn," he said, his voice carrying the authority that spoke the universe into existence. "I will give you the words to speak. I will open the hearts that need to hear. Your job is simply to be faithful with what I have shown you." Then he began to show me the fourth and most crucial vision: what happens to those who respond to his call during September 2025 versus those who do not. The contrast was so stark, so definitive, that it left no room for casual decision-making. I saw people who opened their hearts to God this month being filled with a supernatural peace and joy that remained with them regardless of their circumstances. They became like beacons of light in an increasingly dark world, drawing others to the truth through their transformed lives. Even when they faced trials and difficulties, they carried within them an unshakable hope that sustained them through everything. But those who continued to ignore God's calling, who remained focused solely on earthly pursuits, gradually found themselves sinking deeper into spiritual darkness. It wasn't that God was punishing them. It was that they were choosing separation from the very source of light and life. Their hearts grew harder, their minds more confused, their souls more empty with each passing day. This is why September 2025 is so critical, Jesus explained. The spiritual atmosphere during this time makes it easier than ever for people to hear my voice, to feel my presence, to make the choice for eternal life. But once this window closes, the same hardness of heart that has always plagued humanity will settle back over the earth, and it will be much more difficult for people to find their way to me. The fifth vision he showed me was perhaps the most beautiful and terrifying simultaneously. I saw the moment when his patience with human rebellion finally reaches its appointed end. It wasn't anger or vengeance. It was the inevitable consequence of giving people exactly what they had chosen. Those who had chosen to live for themselves, to reject his love, to ignore his calling, were allowed to continue on that path permanently. But those who had chosen him, who had opened their hearts during this final season of grace, were brought into a realm of joy and peace that made even the beautiful place where I was standing seem dim by comparison. Every person alive right now is making this eternal choice, Jesus said, his eyes reflecting both infinite mercy and absolute justice. Some are choosing consciously, others unconsciously, but everyone is choosing. There is no neutral ground when it comes to eternity. As these visions began to fade, I found myself back in that place of indescribable beauty where our encounter had begun. But now I understood that this wasn't meant to be my permanent home. Not yet. I had work to do, a message to deliver, a purpose to fulfill. Jesus looked at me with eyes that seemed to see everything I would face in the coming days and weeks. When you return, Evelyn, some will believe your testimony immediately. Others will mock you, call you delusional, claim that your experience was nothing more than a hallucination brought on by trauma. Do not let their skepticism discourage you. Plant the seeds of truth that I am giving you, and trust me to make them grow in the hearts that are ready to receive them. He paused, and I could see the weight of all human history in his expression. Remember that I was also mocked, ridiculed, and rejected by many during my time on earth. If they treated the Master that way, they will certainly treat his messenger the same way. But for every person who rejects the message, there will be others whose hearts are prepared to receive it. Focus on those whose eyes light up with recognition when you share what you have seen. Then, he began to speak about the specific things I needed to tell people, the practical ways they could respond to his calling during this crucial month of September 2025. His instructions were clear, urgent, and filled with hope for those willing to act on them. Tell them that prayer during this time carries unusual power, he said. The spiritual atmosphere has been prepared to answer prayers in ways that will amaze even longtime believers. Encourage them to pray boldly, to ask for the impossible, to intercede for family members and friends who seem far from God. Many hearts that have been closed for years are about to open, but they need someone to pray them open. He also spoke about the importance of gathering together during September 2025. My people have been scattered, isolated, focused on their individual spiritual journeys. But this is a time for unity, for corporate worship, for believers to come together in unprecedented ways. When they gather in my name during this season, They will experience my presence in ways they have never experienced before. I could sense our time together was drawing to a close, and the thought of leaving his presence was almost unbearable. The peace, the love, the absolute certainty of being completely known and completely accepted. How could I return to a world filled with confusion, conflict, and doubt? But Jesus seemed to understand my reluctance. The separation is only temporary, Evelyn, and you will not be alone when you return. My Spirit will go with you, will strengthen you, will remind you of everything you have seen and heard. When you feel overwhelmed by the darkness of the world, remember this place. Remember this moment. Remember that ultimate victory has already been secured. As he spoke these words, I began to feel that familiar pulling sensation, the sense of being drawn back towards something I couldn't see. The beautiful colors began to fade. The heavenly music grew dim, and the overwhelming presence of divine love started to recede. "Go now, my faithful witness," Jesus said, his voice becoming more distant, but no less powerful. "Tell them that I love them more than they can imagine. Tell them that September 2025 is their moment, their opportunity, their last best chance to choose life over death, light over darkness, eternity with me over eternity without me. Tell them that I am waiting, that I am calling, that my arms are open wide to receive anyone who will come to me." The last thing I remember seeing was his smile, a smile filled with such love, such hope, such confidence in his ultimate victory that it burned itself permanently into my memory. Then everything went white, then black, and then I was gasping for air in a hospital bed, surrounded by the startled faces of nurses and doctors who couldn't believe what they were seeing. The transition back to physical reality was jarring and painful. My body ached in ways I had never experienced. The harsh fluorescent lights hurt my eyes. The sounds of the hospital, beeping machines, overhead pages, hurried footsteps seemed almost violent after the perfect harmony I had just left behind. But even more challenging than the physical discomfort was the spiritual weight I now carried. I had been entrusted with a message that could literally change the eternal destiny of anyone who heard and believed it. How do you carry that kind of responsibility? How do you find the words to describe experiences that exist beyond human language? The doctors called my recovery miraculous. The extent of my injuries should have left me brain dead or worse. But here I was, not only alive, but rapidly healing. They ran test after test, trying to explain what had happened. But I knew the truth. I had been sent back with a purpose, and God wasn't going to let anything prevent me from fulfilling that purpose. Now, as I share this story with you, we're already 14 days into September 2025. That means we have only 16 days left in this critical window that Jesus showed me. 16 days for people to make the most important decision of their lives. 16 days for the great spiritual harvest to take place. 16 days for humanity to choose its destiny. I don't know who you are or what your spiritual background might be, but I know this. You didn't stumble across this video by accident. God orchestrated this moment, arranged this divine appointment because He has something specific He wants to say to your heart right now. Maybe you've been running from God for years, trying to build a life that doesn't include Him. Maybe you've been angry with Him because of pain or disappointment you've experienced. Maybe you've simply been too busy, too distracted, too focused on other things to give Him serious consideration. Whatever your situation, Jesus wants you to know that He's not angry with you. He's not waiting to condemn you or punish you. He's waiting to embrace you, to forgive you, to give you the peace and purpose you've been searching for your entire life. The choice is yours, and the time is now. September 2025 is your moment, your opportunity, your last best chance to experience the love that created the universe and the grace that can transform your life forever. Don't let this window close without responding to His call. Don't let this be the opportunity you wish you had taken when it's too late to take it. I've shared what I was asked to share. I've delivered the message I was entrusted to deliver. Now it's up to you to decide what you'll do with it. Will you dismiss it as the hallucination of a traumatized graduate student? Or will you open your heart to the possibility that the God who loves you more than you can imagine is calling your name right now in this very moment, offering you eternal life and everlasting joy? The choice is yours. But remember, September 2025 won't last forever. And according to what Jesus showed me, neither will this unprecedented opportunity to choose Him. Don't wait. Don't delay. Don't assume there will be another chance like this one. Your eternal destiny hangs in the balance and time is running out. If you've made it this far, know that it's not by accident. Every word you've read is a seed. And if it has landed in your heart, don't let it lie dormant. Guard it, nurture it, and let it bear fruit. Tell me in the comments what it has stirred within you by writing Amen and the name of your country, so I'll know how far this message is reaching. Subscribe to stay connected and share it with at least 3 friends, so that what you've received today can touch their lives as well. Open your heart. The time is short and light grows when it is shared.